Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Today I want to talk a little bit about the thing of Jehovah's blessing that we talk about and hear a lot about if you're a Jehovah's Witness at meetings and literature. We hear that when we make sacrifices in order to serve Jehovah, when we give our time, our money, our efforts, that we will be richly blessed. And this is such a conundrum because so many people in the organization are very low income, work part-time in order to pioneer and spend their time serving the congregation and the organization, thinking it's, sacrificing their time for Jehovah, really. But really what we're doing is we're working for an organization that is getting richer because of our free labor facts. So then we were promised that when we do all that we would be richly, richly blessed by Jehovah. And the first time that it was kind of dawning on me that maybe this isn't so is when I saw my grandpa in old age dying, because he had given his entire life, everything, his time, his youth, resources. They moved away from family. They worked and slaved for the organization. And as he got older, the congregation really discarded him and put him on the sidelines, and he was getting very depressed. Just to kind of sum up his life, his mother was in the concentration camp because she was a Jehovah's Witness, and so my grandpa, he was raised without a mom in his house and didn't see her. I have the letters from him to her back and forth, and how he would say how much he missed her because he was a little boy. And then by the time that she was released, he was a grown man. So he really sacrificed so much not being able to see his mom. He wasn't a Jehovah's Witness at the time, but after the war, he was searching for his mom, and his mom had moved in with another Jehovah's Witness, and that ended up being my grandma. She brought my grandpa in. So that's how they met, is because she kind of hosted a concentration camp survivor Jehovah's Witness. It's a very sweet story, but my grandpa, he was all in, and they weren't able to return to their homes in Germany. That part is now Russia and Poland. It's no longer Germany. So imagine like losing your home, your part of the country, your whole community. So I think that the Jehovah's Witness organization really gave them a new community and people that were close-knit, and they loved it. They really loved it. They went into the special pioneer service and preached, and they would move places to serve. My grandpa and my grandma, they loved serving, and they in turn brought so many people into the religion. We counted it one time, and it was about 100 people that they brought in, because my grandpa, he really, you could tell he was genuine, and it came from his heart. And I think that it appeals to people when you are sincere, but also intelligent. So the way that he could give a talk or give a study, for me growing up, to see someone so super intelligent explain things made sense to me. I loved listening to him. I loved learning from him. And then all the stuff in the congregation started happening, where my grandpa was always a Bible-following spiritual man. And what they really want is that you are an organization company man. And I made an episode about that. I'll link it below. So the two kind of clash because the organizational rules aren't always the same as the Bible rules. And they did not like that my grandpa was challenging things that weren't written in the Bible. But he would, because to him it didn't make sense. If it's not in the Bible, Why are we making a big deal about this issue? It's unscriptural. And so eventually that kept getting him in hot water. And at one convention, even the circuit overseer from stage was kind of condemning my grandpa's actions, which he didn't really do anything. He just didn't follow the organizational man-made rules. And they did not like that. Like, my grandpa was just very, liberal in a lot of his ways. For example, back in the day, he didn't feel like women should have to wear skirts because why? Or men should have to wear ties because why? It's not in the Bible. So I have a picture from the 80s where we're at a convention, and he's an elder at the time, and he's wearing a polo shirt, and my mom and I were wearing pants and still dressed very professional and clean and nice, but no suit, tie, no dress. And those kind of views just got him in constant hot water. Instead of listening to him and thinking, this is a brother who really studies a lot, they just did not like it. And it always kind of felt that they wanted unintelligent people to rise who ended up dominating the congregation instead of people like my grandpa who were really loving and kind. He was so kind to everybody. He would include all the kids. He would ask all the kids to come and help along, and people who didn't have status. He was just nice to everybody. And I feel like that's the example of how we should be following Jesus. So in old age, he ended up being super disgraced. And the letter that followed him from congregation to congregation that some mean elder wrote was just absolute slander. My grandpa had a study and ended up having a lot of hours too because of his Bible studies. And they actually wrote in the study, in the letter that followed him to the next congregation, that they think that he lied about having this study, and nobody could have this many hours of field service. I mean, can you even imagine? He was such an honest person. So to see, because luckily, I don't know if it's lucky or not, but one elder in the new congregation showed him the letter. And I don't know if that was maybe a good thing or a bad thing. For one, you don't understand why people are treating you badly, especially the elder body. And so maybe it's good to know what they wrote about you. But on the other hand, maybe it's not a good thing because it hurt him so much. Because yes, he was high in age, and yes, he was so zealous in service. He always had a study. He always had a lot of hours. And to question that is just absolutely horrible. It crushed him. And then the last memorial that we were at, he was almost 90, high in age. Not one elder came to say hi at the memorial to the eldest member of the congregation. And he was on phone hookup at home most of the time. So they hadn't seen him in a long time, but he was just blacklisted. And that sucked so bad. So I ask you, where is that blessing? This man gave his life. He gave his resources. He did everything that they tell you to do, and they tell you you will receive Jehovah's blessing. And he did not get that blessing. And the Watchtower online, it says, Jehovah blesses those whom he approves by protecting, prospering, guiding, giving success, and supplying their needs with a beneficial outcome for them. I mean, that is such a random, honestly, wild thing to just say. So when people are struggling, I guess you don't have Jehovah's blessing. When people, they must question themselves, what's happening right now? I lost my job. I lost my spouse. Am I not getting the blessing? And who's prospering in the organization? I didn't know that we even believe that. Jehovah blesses those by whom he approves by prospering and supplying their needs. I didn't see that at all. And my personal experience with this blessing is, the first time I got married, I was very young, and I made a mistake, and I married a worldly guy, and everything went wrong. And I really thought it was my fault. I I did this because I married a worldly guy. And so next time I'm going to just do it better. And I really, truly wanted to do everything right. I wanted to get Jehovah's blessing and redeem my wrong actions. And so I pioneered. I had 13 Bible studies in the foreign language congregation, and I really wanted to marry a person who loves Jehovah so that I could be with somebody and get Jehovah's blessing and, do everything right. And so when I met my ex-husband, I felt like that was the case. I thought, oh my gosh, it is a blessing I met him. This is so wonderful. I really earned my blessing this time. I did everything right. And, turns out that I married a sex addict and found him on Grindr. Go ahead and listen to my experience with that. But I did do everything right this time. And he was a former Bethelite. He was in good standing. He had pioneered. He was a servant previously. I did everything right. And here I felt like it was worse than marrying the worldly guy. So how do you explain that with the blessing of Jehovah? So it says on the library on jdov.org, it says, living by Bible principles opens up so many blessings, such as a much happier marriage, peace of mind, and a good conscience. Yeah, my conscience was pretty good, but a much happier marriage and peace of mind. My life was like a soap opera in that marriage. I mean, I could write a book, but how horrible it was. And here, why didn't I deserve that blessing? Why didn't my grandpa deserve that blessing? And the thing of it is it's just all such brainwashing. Everybody, no matter how terrible they do, they're like, oh, we're blessed by Jehovah. And then they'll say, you'll never hear a pioneer say that they regretted pioneering. But then if you talk to Exjw pioneers, yeah, you'll hear people regret that they pioneered. Because honestly, it was not my best year when I pioneered. It was strenuous. I worked full time and I worked a couple side gigs. My foreign language congregation wasn't particularly kind to me. There was no support. Everybody was just poor. So I'm pretty sure while they slipped the circuit overseer money, which they do, nobody helped my friend and I. We were single ladies working our tails off and then pioneering. And I was just exhausted. I would go from work to pioneering to meeting to studying to my second job, my third job. I would take side gigs. I was so exhausted. I was sick all the time. And have you ever noticed how they kind of manipulate you into doing this too? Because they say, just do it for a year. Just pioneer for a year and see how it works. And I really was upset about this because then when you get to go to pioneer school, first of all, is one of those secret meetings where they give you a secret book just for pioneers to make you feel so special. And they're like, don't let anybody see this who's not a pioneer. They have to pioneer themselves, which I already thought really was weird. Why is this a secret thing? Why is this so secretive? The Bible's open for everybody to read, and we're this high society club in a way. And then the other thing is that during pioneer school, when I went, it was still 2 weeks. First of all, I had to try to get that time off, which is a big burden. And then second of all, the whole time you hear, you don't want to quit now. Who would quit? You can't quit now. You should keep going. And the longer you go, and they show you all these examples of people who work full time and have pioneered for 30 years. It's major guilt tripping for you not to quit. And I already knew I couldn't do it. I was exhausted and I had to keep it real. I'm they said, do it for a year. I'm doing it for a year. But it's such baiting. It's it just was so crazy to me how they bait you in it and then they guilt trip you. And in a way, isn't it also public shaming when they announce your name? You're no longer a pioneer. Gosh, why does that have to do? They love to public shame. It's just all these signs of a cult. And it's true, like, when you go on Reddit, there's one comment that talks about how it's confirmation bias because every good thing is a blessing from Jehovah and every bad thing is a curse from Satan. So when I was leaving the organization with my children, I was very, very terrified because it's ingrained in you that you're leaving Jehovah's protection and you're going to be on your own and you're scared of the world. And for some reason, all these really good things happened to me when I left. And I know that my congregation that viewed me as no longer an active J-dub would view these good things that happened to me from Satan for some weird reason. But one sister from a different state that didn't know that we'd quit going to meetings, she wrote us that she's so happy that these like very good things were happening because it's really truly a blessing from Jehovah. And it was kind of weird reading that because you think, so you don't even know that we don't go to meetings anymore, but you view this as a blessing from Jehovah. Like, I really think like my point in all of this is also saying that don't be afraid to leave. We are very, very brainwashed that staying is your protection, and I would argue that it's not. The blessing from Jehovah is, you can apply that to anything, but there will be blessings when you stay, there will be blessings when you go, or maybe it's just luck, or it's just life, because life is a roller coaster and good and bad things happen. Good things happen to you in the organization. Good things happen to you when you leave the organization, and then also bad things happen. But I would say that staying in the organization is actually where you're not protected because, first of all, the pedo problem that is rampant. And then, do these people really truly have your back? I didn't see that. If you listen to my stories in the beginning, I did not really feel that as an organization they had my back as a single mother going through divorce and all that. So, to me, having left was a blessing. And it's also really, really culty to always have this like, everything is so awesome. Everything is so great. Isn't this the greatest? Like, why are we calling the best life ever this life? Because we would always say this isn't the real life. Paradise is the real life. And suddenly, like, this is the best life ever. Well, it's not. Pretty bad things happen. And one meeting I showed up and I was just going through a really hard time and I cried. And the sister said to me, "You really shouldn't be doing that here. This is not the place." And I thought, this is the place to come to be comforted, to Jehovah's house. But she was mad that I wasn't like cheery and smiling, which to me is so culty to always fake, fake that you're so happy, that everything is so great. And really, it's just insane. And I really hate it too when people would always say like, "Oh, thank you to Jehovah for this and thank you to Jehovah for that." Like, for example, a sister went shopping for the assembly and she's like, "Oh, thank Jehovah, I found a skirt for the convention on sale." And I thought, man, do you really think like Jehovah's going to bless you with an $11 skirt when there's people who are starving and people who are being abused and all this, but he's going to bless you with a skirt on sale? And they would start saying it about every little thing. And I'm like, geez, this is so wild. I did not like that. And how many sisters who so badly want to meet somebody and just will not meet somebody because the truth is that the ratio sister to brother is more women stay in a cult than men. That's sadly factual. So many brothers leave, sisters stay, and then they can't meet somebody. And plus, the ones that stay and they're gay and they can't truly live their love life, like, is that not also oppression and not being blessed? I know so many sisters who would love to meet somebody and fall in love and that dating experience, that experience to love somebody, is being stolen from them in the organization. So where's the blessing there? I mean, truly, the blessing thing is just a crazy, crazy propaganda technique that Watchtower uses. And the last thing I want to talk about is the blessing of being accepted to Bethel. My ex-husband, he went to Bethel to serve as a teenager, and they were really excited. Like, he was thrilled. Bethel ended up being like the worst experience for him. He had an overseer that was absolutely cruel and horrible to the brothers who worked under him. And along with many other things, like, you don't really have any money. So he was in Brooklyn still at the time. So to go to meetings, he had to go on the subway, and that costs money. So they got like a few bucks as a stipend every month, and that was barely enough to cover the subway. And then you have no money left, so you're in poverty, really. And no surprise, since they take a vow of poverty. I did not even know that till recently. They take a vow of poverty when they enter Bethel life. So he ended up getting disfellowshipped and getting kicked out of Bethel. I talk about that earlier. But for years, I'm sure to this day, because our entire 11 years of marriage, he had nightmares of Bethel. Like, for him, it was a nightmare. The cruel overseers, 9/11 happened when he was there, and just like Bethel life as a whole, he hated it. So where was the blessing there? He gave up a full right to university in order to go to Bethel, only to be kicked out from there and then have nightmares forever. There's no blessing. It's just so crazy. And so it is back to the thing of Watchtower cherry picking things that happen good to people and disguising it as Jehovah's blessing when it's just life. It really truly is just life. Life is up, life is down. We can't attribute it to a blessing or a curse from Satan. That being said, I want to talk about something else tomorrow, and that is that we hear these experiences and they're supposed to be really encouraging and like blessings from Jehovah, but I want to talk about an experience that was at a convention where I knew the people, and it was a fake experience. They lied on stage, and I'll talk about that in my next episode, so stay tuned. Hey guys, how's everybody doing? Today I want to talk a little bit about